Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of Our Home Ground podcast where the women's game feels personal and powerful. I am so excited that people keep coming back and listening. I don't know if there are that many of you out there, but that's okay. That doesn't matter. Like I say every week, I have fun doing this, and it gives me something somewhere to talk about the things that I'm really excited about and passionate about. And so I love it. So thank you if you're here. Happy to have you. So this week's episode is going to be all about the Champions League, but of course it's not going to be about like analyzing the games and stuff because that's not what I do. But I want to talk about it because there are so many things that I want to mention. And this is going to be a very like American perspective because for the first time America has its own coverage for the Champions League. Paramount Plus is doing it, which is a CBS Sports like affiliate, I think is the word for it. I don't know. It's on Paramount Plus, and there's like a whole team of analysts and commentators that are specific to like the United States. And so that's really exciting because previously I've always just watched on DAZN, which is very like European, which is great in a lot of ways, but it was so refreshing to have these like American analysts and things. And so we'll get into it a little bit. But first, I want to start by just noting some of the results because there was some interesting stuff that happened. And so I'll mention that a little bit, but then get into some of these like other sort of off the field type things. Wolfsburg beat PSG 4-0. It was really, I think it was a closer game than what the scoreline says. I was kind of intermittently watching it. It was 2-0 until like the 80th minute or something like that. Then Wolfsburg got a late goal, and then in extra time, they won a penalty. So it ended up 4-0. I think I was hopeful that PSG would do better. The club has been like a powerhouse across men's and women's football for a while, but I feel like the women have just been kind of going through it of late. So I was hopeful that they would have like a better showing in the Champions League. Again, it's just the first game. I'll keep saying that, keep reminding all of us that it's the first game and we shouldn't panic or, let this dictate who we think is actually going to win. But I think that was interesting. I wasn't expecting that like big of a differential in the scoreline there. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. Is that a sign about Wolfsburg? Is that a sign about PSG? I don't know. Atletico Madrid beat St. Polten 6-0, which again, big scoreline that I didn't know what to expect there, but I don't think I was expecting that big of a scoreline. Real Madrid beat Roma 6-2. I think it was like 3-2 at halftime. There were a lot of goals happening in that game, like quickly. Clearly, 8 goals were scored. Like, that's a lot. And then Barcelona beat Bayern Munich 7-1. That blew my mind. I was not expecting that scoreline at all. I wasn't expecting Bayern to win. I think right now is when Barcelona will be at their strongest. It's still early in the season. The team is very fresh. I think it's as we continue along that I have more concerns about how they're going to be able to keep like the squad fit and have good player availability and all of that. We'll get into that in a little bit. But the three Spanish teams scored at least 6 goals, with Barca scoring 7. And that I think we should be paying attention to. I don't know what that means. That's just a lot of goals coming from the Spanish sides. So, I mean, we know that the Spanish national team is one of the best teams in the world. So I don't think it's like that shocking, but I was like, whoa, that's a lot. Arsenal lost to Lyon 2-1, which I think a lot of people were freaking out about. If you watched the game, I think there was about a 10-minute spell in the first half where it felt like it could get quickly out of hand and that Lyon could run away with it. And they didn't, which I think is really important. I Arsenal's going through it at the moment, but hopefully they'll be able to like figure it out. That was a rematch of the semifinal from last year, which is such an exciting game to have the first game of the season. And also, it's still very early on, both in the domestic season and obviously in the Champions League season. And so there are a lot of games left to play. And in this new sort of like league phase, I'm intrigued to see how this goes. As I told all my other Arsenal friends, we could be Bayern. Like it could be so much worse. The goal differential is small. Yes, Arsenal didn't get any points, but at least their goal differential isn't so bad. Again, I think it could have been a much worse day for us. And so I think I feel okay about it. Obviously, I would have loved for them to get some points out of it, but I think it's okay where things are at right now. And then the one that shocked me the most, well, actually, I think Barca is the game that shocked me the most, But the second most shocking is that Chelsea drew against Twente 1-1. And if you guys, anyone out there didn't watch the Champions League last year, Twente was in Chelsea's group and Chelsea beat them 6-1 at home and then 3-1 away. And then Chelsea went there and drew 1-1. And so I think that's huge for Twente. Like, good for them. They signed Joe Roard over the summer, and I think they had some other pretty impressive signings. And so I think it's great for them. Like, I'm excited. I think a lot of people are like freaking out a little bit about the Chelsea of it all. And Chelsea didn't score in the run of play. They won a penalty, and Guro Reiten won a penalty, and then it was converted by Sandy Baltimore, which that right, the best teams can do those kinds of things, and so that's important too as well. But I think it's interesting that they didn't score in the run of play at all. So I'm keeping my eye on that. I think Chelsea is sort of everybody's favorite to win. And so the fact that they like drew on the opening day to a team that they shouldn't have, right? They didn't play another like pot A team. They played somebody from one of the other pots. And they were certainly expected to win that game and they didn't. And so I think that's really interesting. And so I'm keeping my eye on that. I still think Chelsea are the heavy favorites. And I think that they should be, quite honestly. Obviously, I'm cheering for Arsenal. That's my team. But I'm just not sure how realistic that is. I don't think it was realistic to think that they would win it last year. So whatever. I don't need to live in a realistic state, is all I'm saying there. So those are some of the results. Of course, there were a couple other games, but if you're coming here for your like women's soccer news, then I regret to inform you that's a bad strategy. So maybe you can look that stuff up on your own. But what I really want to talk about is, like I said, the coverage by the like, and they're not all American actually, but the like US based analysts, people who generally cover like the NWSL and the US Women's National Team and those kinds of things, because it was just so refreshing and fun to hear people who are familiar with the US Women's National Team and the NWSL and just kind of like American players talking about all of the American talent that exists in Europe right now, because a lot of these players have previously played in the NWSL and so they're very familiar to these analysts. And so it was so fun. I was obsessed with it. I was like smiling ear to ear. So, Paramount Plus, it was the analysis sessions, the pregame, halftime, and postgame shows were hosted by Hannah Cash. And the analysts that they had on this week were Jen Beatty, Janelle Farias. I'm sure that's not how she pronounces her name, and I'm very sorry about that. Darian Jenkins and Kelley O'Hara. I was looking it up and it also has Allie Riley listed as an analyst. So I think we're going to see her sort of like maybe when her Angel City season wraps up and I guess her career wraps up because she just recently announced that she's retiring. So I think she might be making this sort of transition into sort of an analyst role. And I'm intrigued to see how that goes for her. Anyways, she wasn't there this week. It was Jen, Janelle, Darian, and Kelley doing the analysis. And not every player who retires from professional soccer who goes into the like media side of it, Reddit, whether it's analysis or commentating or something like that, it doesn't always go well. Like, not everybody's good at it. I think that Jen and Darian and Kelley are exceptional. I think they're great. I love so much about what they're doing. And it feels so important. And part of it is that they don't lose their personality. Sometimes I feel like when we have, I don't know, and maybe they don't lose their personality, because I was thinking about like when we have men commentating on women, it's just like not the same. It's not the same vibe. It's just different. And sometimes then it comes off as like stiff or disingenuous. Clearly, Darian and Kelley and Jen and Janelle and Hannah are like super passionate about the women's game. And so they're like into it and it's passionate and it's what we see on the men's side when these former male players are commentating, whatever, on what's going on. And so I just thought it was excellent. It was 10 out of 10. I have no notes. It was an all-female front of camera, and I think there was only like one man behind the camera. Like, it was a full women's squad, and I just think that's so fun and so exciting and so good for the women's game. And I am thinking a lot about Emma Hayes and her the US Women's National Team way, which is everything through a female lens. And I think this is a place where it's maybe starting. And I don't know if that's directly related to any of the work she's doing or not, but I think it was a great example of it. And I could not have loved it more. Like it felt different in the best way. And I'm just so obsessed with it. I haven't shut up about it since Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm recording this, importantly, I should say, I am recording this on Saturday, the 11th of October, and it will release on Wednesday, I don't actually know, 15th maybe of October. Maybe I should look really quickly at what that actual date is because, yeah, Wednesday, the 15th of October is when this is coming out. So there will be more games on, I think, Tuesday and Wednesday next week. Maybe it's Wednesday and Thursday next week. So maybe this will come out before the next round of Champions League games play. But anyways, it's just like important to know. I think I always wonder when people are recording, like, well, this happened. Did they know that at the time? So anything that happens after 3 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday, the 11th, I don't know about. I just back to the Kelley and Jen and Darian of it all. I think having the player perspective is so interesting. And these are all players who have like pretty recently retired. The one who's the furthest out is Darian, and she retired in 2022. She played for several teams in the NWSL, was part of the US Women's National Team youth system, didn't make the jump to the senior team, but Jen Beattie, I think people are very, very familiar with. Not American, firmly not American. She is Scottish. She played for the Scottish national team, played for multiple different teams in the UK, including long stints at Arsenal and Manchester City. So Jen knows so many of these players in Europe just from like playing against them for so long or playing on the same teams as them and stuff. So that's really exciting. And then Kelley is obviously very familiar with all of the US Women's National Team players. She retired from the US Women's National Team after the World Cup in 2023. So she like knows so many of these players. Did she play professionally? Yeah, she played professionally in 2024. She was injured for most of the season, but she was at Gotham still. So she knows so many of the players. And so it's just their perspective is so lovely. I love it. I think that, oh, the other thing I wanted to say about Jen Beattie and the commentary of it all, because Jen was an analyst and actually like an in-game commentator for the Arsenal versus Lyon game. And she was excellent at that too. And I think those are two like distinct skills to be able to like look at highlights or pull back after a game or at halftime and talk sort of like globally about what happened versus being like in the moment and commentating on what's going on like throughout the game. I think Jen is so good at it, and I think that's really hard to do. And especially when she does commentary for Arsenal. I know this was not her first game doing it for Arsenal or other teams as well, but she just knows the information, like knows so much about the players for Arsenal and the team environment and all of that shit that she was able to like drop little nuggets in, but it wasn't like overwhelmingly like, oh, I played for Arsenal, like it was just so well done and I love it. And I'm a big Jen Beattie fan. If you haven't figured that out, I think she's incredible and was so incredible for the sport. I was devastated when she left Arsenal, but she is nailing it. And I love that these like beloved players like Kelley O'Hara is one of the most like beloved US Women's National Team players. Like everybody knows Kelley O'Hara. There was a really funny thing that one of the previous coaches had said about Kelley. They were talking about a specific game. I couldn't even tell you who the coach was or what game they were talking about, but she just goes, "We need a bitch. Put Kelley on." Like that, Kelley just like filled that role on the team so well. She's described as like the hardest worker, always willing to go the extra mile, always willing to like put in that tackle and do the thing. And so it's just so fun to get to see her transition to like this and talk about the game in such a way and to keep that kind of like fiery Kelley O'Hara personality that we're so used to in this. And so I want to talk about some of my favorite sort of Kelley O'Hara moments just on Tuesday and Wednesday. I think if you wanted me to talk about my favorite Kelley O'Hara moments like ever, we would need like several podcast episodes because she's just an icon. Anyways, I'm going to go a little bit chronologically, I think. So, during the Arsenal game, I think it was post game, when she was talking about Emily Fox and sort of the impact that she's had at Arsenal and on the US women's national team, she was like glowing while she was talking about her. They both play a similar position. Kelley played outside back as well. And obviously, Emily Fox is the right back for Arsenal and for the US women's national team. And you could just see how proud Kelley was of the impact that Foxy is having. And it was just so fun and so sweet to like see her just get to like brag on her former teammate who she just couldn't have said enough nice things about. And so that was really cute. The other person that she also ranted and raved about was Naomi Girma, which is funny because Naomi Girma was not playing. She's not back in the squad yet. She's working out an injury situation. But Kelley was like, Naomi Girma will be the difference maker for Chelsea. She will be the reason that they win the Champions League, essentially. Naomi has been a center back for the US women's national team for many years at this point, which is crazy because she's like still quite young. But Kelley's like, she's the best person, the best defender, the best this, like just going on and just saying how like she's going to unlock something for Chelsea. I think she's right. I think I went on a tangent last time about how much I want to see Naomi Girma back. And so it was so interesting to then hear Kelley say like the same thing. Um, but that was very cute and sweet. And then my favorite potential moment was when they did the post-game interview. Lindsay Heaps is the current captain of the US women's national team, has played on the US women's national team since like 2016, I think, roughly. And so played with Kelley for like a number of years. And Kelley was like in and out of captain. And so Lindsay Heaps plays for Lyon now. And she did the post-game interview with the Paramount Plus squad. And so she came on and she saw that Kelley was there and she was like, "Hi, Cappy, love you." Like it was just so sweet. And they were like making little jokes. They were having some technological difficulties. There was like a huge lag in when Lindsay was able to like hear what the team was asking her, but it ended up being like a really sweet thing. And they had like their a little moment, and then she was saying nice things about Kelley, and then she was like, but also she's crazy, like don't forget that. Like it was just really cute and sweet. And so I think that's something that I miss as like a US based fan who's watching the Champions League in previous years. Like there was not this sort of like personal connection, or even like, I don't know, intimate feels like way too strong of a word to use, but like the European analysts and commentators just don't know the US women's national team players in the same way that former US women's national team players do. And so it was so fun to see like Kelley and Darian both played in the NWSL for a long time and on the US women's national team, talking about these players in that like familiarity kind of way. And then Jen can also provide that sort of like European knowledge, and she played in the NWSL for a year. And so I just, it was lovely. The funniest thing I think that Kelley did was all of the banter about the Chelsea result. So Kelley was very, very confident on like the shows leading up, or maybe even like the Tuesday show, that Chelsea's going to win the Champions League. She's like all in, it's going to be Chelsea, no competition. She's in the Kelley O'Hara kind of like confident way, like it's going to be Chelsea. And then they tied Twente and conceded. Yes, the goal was gorgeous. The captain of Twente scored like a top bins, upper 90, beautiful strike. But Kelley was very critical of the defending from Chelsea. Nobody stepped to the ball fast enough. Millie Bright tried to, but it was like too late. And Kelley was so annoyed about it. And they like kept replaying it over and over again. And they were like analyzing it. And Kelley, after like the third or fourth time, just like turned around after she had like first time she said something. Second time she was like, "It's just too casual. Like, what are we doing?" And then she tried to joke that there was like ref interference. Like, I don't think she actually meant that. The ref was like kind of nearby, but like I don't think the ref actually interfered. And then the next time that it played, Kelley just like walked out of the frame, like off the set. And Jen was like trying to keep talking, but just started laughing because like, "Kelley, what are you doing?" But again, like bringing her personality and bringing all of the things that we loved about Kelley O'Hara as a player into this analyst role, I think is so fun. And it was so funny. And it's just such a great representation of like why we need women's analysts, because we love the women's game and we've loved so many of these players who have been in the women's game. And so like bringing them in made me watch the post-game show on Tuesday and Wednesday. I have never watched a post-game show after a Champions League game because it was like these European commentators who I don't know, I just like didn't feel like I related to. This one felt so much more like it came from the like women's lens in a way that made me want to stay and made me want to watch. And I was going to talk about this at the end, but I think it fits here actually. One of those was the segment that they did at the very end on Wednesday, which I think was gold. Brilliant. Whoever's idea that was, you deserve a raise. It was called Wednesday Wind Down. So they like literally just like sat in these chairs. They like left their where they had been analyzing and they sat in these like comfy chairs and they all had a glass of wine and they just chatted. And what they did that segment was like a red flag, green flag thing. And so they each made one statement, one about soccer, one not about soccer. And then everybody had to like hold up a green flag or a red flag. And like one of them was, I think Kelley said, She's the Man is the best soccer movie of all time. And then if you like agreed, you had a green flag. And if you didn't agree, you had a red flag, right? Like, so it was like funny stuff like that, but it was so chaotic and it just made me laugh so much, but it really just felt like people like sitting around and chatting with their friends, similar to how like it would be after a game, just like, yeah, chatting about what happened and just relaxing, having a glass of wine. I loved it. It was for the girls, you know? Like it was for the women's sports fans. And I think that's great. And I think we need more of those kinds of things because it really I don't know, made me feel more connected to like the post game show and the games that are happening and like look forward to next week. And I'm going to block off the time after the games as well to like stay and watch the post game shows in ways that I would not have done that in the past. And so I just think that's so fun. And so there's that. Okay, I think I'm done gushing about Kelley O'Hara and the Paramount Plus team. They were excellent, but I want to move on to some of my other Matchday One favorite moments. So let's get into it. The first one that we have to talk about is Alexia Putellas and that bow. It is so just iconic of her. Everyone knows that's her. She did it. The first time I remember seeing it was in the Champions League final 2 years ago when they played Lyon and she like didn't play. And I don't remember why. I think I mean, she was back from her ACL by then, but I think she had like another sort of like niggle kind of issue with her knee. She'd been kind of like in and out, but I remember being surprised that she wasn't playing. And I think she was surprised too. And then she came in like the 85th minute or something, and then she scored in like 90 plus two. I think they were like up 2-1, and then she scored to make them, or maybe they're up 1-0, and then she scored to make it 2-0 to like seal the deal. And then she like took her shirt off, went to the corner, bowed, like then like put the shirt in her mouth. Crazy. This game, she scored in like the fourth minute or something, like very early on. Classic Alexia Putellas, just gorgeous. I think it was like up in the corner or something. I don't know. I'm assuming it was. All of her goals are magic, it seems like. And then she like ran over, celebrated with her team, lots of badge tapping, just like so excited. And then she did a bow. She like pretends to take off a hat and then like bows. And what was so sweet was there was a girl in the crowd and she wasn't that young. I don't know. I'd give her like preteen kind of age, between 11 and 14, I would say. I don't know how old she actually was. But as Alexia started doing the bow, she like stood up and did the bow with her, and the camera angle caught both of them. And it was just so sweet because I think I've talked a decent amount on here about like, women taking up space and how we talked about with Hannah about how like women celebrating isn't always like accepted well, but to see this girl like watch Alexia Putellas celebrate that goal in that way, like La Reina bowing, like oh, it was sick. I loved it. Big fan of that. I would like to see more of that. Maybe not more Alexia goals because I'm a little bit scared of Barca at the moment, but I'm here for it. If that's what it takes to get those kind of moments, then I'm okay with it. Other thing I loved, Ella Toone winning player of the match, and that was really special to me because then in the interview, in pre-match interviews leading up to the Champions League, and then in her little like I don't want to say speech, like interview post game when they gave her the player of the match, she just talked a lot about how she's just trying to like enjoy the moment because this is Man United's first time ever being in the Champions League. They played through the qualifying rounds and qualified, and so it's just, they're so excited to be there. And she just has been preaching to her team, enjoy the moment. Like, let's enjoy the fact that we're here. Let's live in the moment and just soak it all in. And so she was talking about that in her sort of like acceptance interview. And then all of the commentators were just talking about what an impact Ella Toone has had on that team and how Tooney is basically like the heartbeat of that team right now. And she seems to like be setting the tone and keeping it and like setting the standard. And it's just so cool to see. And I think Tooney's really in this like transition point in her career where she's going from like the like younger player who's like the up and comer to like she's here now and she's actually becoming like a leader. And so watching that transition in a player's career is so fun. And Tooney's like funny and silly. And so to see someone like with that kind of personality doing that is just exciting and I love it. And so big love to her. I'm a huge Ella Toone fan. I actually got a Lioness jersey to go to the Euros, and that I got a Toone jersey because she's just a special one, isn't she? So really, really excited for her and for Man United. I didn't even mention, I think this became obvious if you were like paying attention, but Man United is the only English team to pick up 3 points on match day one, which I don't think anyone would have bet on that. So that's really exciting. I'm excited for them. I want to see what they do. I would love to see all three English teams go through to the quarterfinals. I think that would be so fun. Um, so yeah, sticking on the Man United train, the Phallon Tullis Joyce love from the Analysts was so special for me. I am also a huge Phallon Tullis Joyce fan. I firmly believe is going to be the U.S. Women's National Team's next number one goalie. She is phenomenal. She went to Man United the year before Mary Earps left. So Mary left at the end of the 23-24 season, I guess. Yeah, because 24-25 she was at PSG. So I guess Phallon went there in like 2023. I think. So played like a year as Mary Earp's backup keeper, got to learn from one of the best goalies in the world, um, and then has sort of slotted in to be Man United's number one in filling a huge role. Like she does not carry the same sort of like personality as Mary Earps, and I think to expect anybody to try to fill that role would be insane. But as far as like being a solid goalkeeper, just like holding it down back there, filling in the gap of Mary Earps leaving in terms of like soccer skill. She's been great. The analysts are talking so much about that. Kelley was talking about how excited she is about her future career on the US Women's National Team, which is fun because Fallon's not super young. Like she's not like a 21-year-old like exciting young player. I think she's like 27 or 28. So she's like a little bit later in her career. If you don't know anything about Phallon Tullis Joyce, she's also a marine biologist. So her Instagram is like full of her like marine biology photography. She's doing like a art thing with it on her stories every day in October. It's sick. And then of course there's like some soccer stuff sprinkled in too. I'd say it's like 60% marine biology, 40% football, soccer stuff. She's just the coolest. And so I'm so excited for her that all of her hard work is paying off and that she's getting all of this love because she's awesome. Like she's just so cool. And maybe not this like stereotypical kind of like professional athlete that we think of with this sort of like marine biology thing. And so I think it's really, really fun. And so I can't wait to see what happens there. I was also really intrigued. One of the conversations that they had in one of the post-game shows was a discussion about Jenna Nighswonger. So, if you don't know, Jenna last January of 25 on deadline day signed with Arsenal from Gotham in New York, New Jersey in the NWSL. And she has not had a good run with Arsenal from the outside. Of course, none of us are in the changing room. None of us know what's going on like behind the scenes, but she hasn't even been made available for matchday squads until this first Champions League game. So the first 5 games of the season, she wasn't even on the bench. They were putting two other goalies on the bench and not her. So there was a lot of questions about what she's doing. Ian Wright, on his podcast with Steph Houghton, brought that up. Houghton. I don't know. I think it's Houghton. I think I said it wrong. Okay, we're gonna go with Houghton. So, Ian Wright and Steph Houghton talked about it several weeks ago, like after the second match day, because Jenna like played a lot in the preseason games, and then they're like posting videos of training, like, and she's heavily featured in the videos, and then not on the bench for the match day squad. So I think a lot of people have a lot of questions. There was discussion on the Paramount Plus coverage about like, should she have left Gotham? Was Arsenal the place for her to go? And I think one of the things about Jenna is she is a very versatile player. She has played in the forward line, in the midfield, and then transitioned to a left back at Gotham when they had some injuries and they needed someone to play that role. That's where she went. And there was a lot of discussion about like sometimes your versatility can be great. And other times you have to choose a position and stake your claim, or else you don't end up in the squad because you're not the best at any position. And so that was really interesting. They posted the clip of it on the W Golazzo Instagram if you want to go hear the whole discussion about that. Thought it was really interesting, because I'm intrigued about what's going on with Jenna too. I don't think that's the first time I've brought her up on this podcast. So we'll see what's happening there. On the Chelsea front, the Alyssa, Thompson, and Ellie Carpenter link up on that right side. Once they get that figured out, I think it's going to be so dangerous. They're both like so unbelievably fast. And they keep Chelsea, their like Instagram and TikTok keep posting little like pictures or videos, clips of Ellie and Alyssa together. And it just makes a lot of sense in my brain that they would be friends. And I just think it's very cute and sweet. Anyways, as far as like on the field, I think that could be really, really scary. Alyssa Thompson seems to be settling in quite well. She's getting a lot of game time. I think she started this Champions League match, which is interesting because they rotated. They had like 7 changes to their starting 11. I would argue they did not start their strongest starting 11. And I think part of that was because they were expecting to win this game pretty easily. And then they didn't. They made some substitutions. And by the end of the game, we're at probably their strongest 11 and still didn't win. So I don't know if that was really like the difference maker, but I do think it's like a little bit embarrassing when you like rotate your squad and then don't win. So I'm just gonna say that. Not to say that they didn't put out a good squad, like that would be crazy to say, but just something to keep in mind. I'm also intrigued to see what happens with Alyssa Thompson as I don't say we about Chelsea, as they get some of their other members of the squad back healthy. Lucy Bronze is supposed to be available this weekend, so tomorrow, but will have been the previous weekend when you're listening to this. So we'll see if Lucy plays, how this Ellie Lucy thing happens. I guess Sonia said that theoretically she thinks they can both play at the same time. They play the same position. So we'll see what happens there. I'm intrigued and excited, and it'll be good to have Lucy Bronze back. Even if she plays for the team that I don't support, that's okay. The other thing I want to talk about is another thing. I think I only have 2 more points. All of the banter about the dark horse teams that you think could like win it or who's going to win that the analysts had chosen was so funny because I think there was like a lot of people had Bayern as like a dark horse team. Like, you know what, maybe they could actually do it. And then they got stomped by Barca. But then Kelley and the Chelsea of it all, and she was like, actually, I think that you can change your team that you think's gonna win or who your dark horse team is, as long as you choose another team within the same country. And so she was like trying to make all these rules to like get out of like choosing the wrong team, which was just like silly because again, it's like match day 1. Like there's a lot of games left to play and it's a league phase, it's the table, it's all the things. I just thought that was so funny because there was just so much banter happening and it was like silly and it just felt like it was just like the girls chatting and obviously like also very well informed, knew exactly what they were talking about. Like I'm not at all trying to diminish any of their analytical skills. They were also doing a lot of that, but it felt like a female lens and that's all I can say. And you either get it or you don't, and that's okay. And I loved it. And last thing I want to say is I think Barca put a lot of doubters, made a lot of doubters quieter. Again, like I mentioned, I think this is when they're going to be the strongest. And so I do think it's important for them to be like getting big wins and racking up the goal difference and those kinds of things. Because in the league table, like it will matter theoretically. But I'm more worried about them as we progress deeper into the season, deeper into the tournament. And I'm not like worried about them losing. Obviously, I don't like want them to lose. Like, fine, they're a powerhouse, great. They have fantastic players. I'm just worried about player health. So I'm worried about injuries and things as they go into like 3 months in a row of 3 game weeks. Like, how is a squad of like 17 first team players going to be able to do that? And I don't know. So we'll see. But I think that's all I have to say about match day one. I say that as if I like didn't have a lot to say. I had a lot to say. There are games next week as well, and I think it's on Wednesday and Thursday. I think it's like Tuesday, Wednesday, then next week's Wednesday, Thursday, and that's how it goes throughout the rest of the season. Through December, there's like 2 weeks and then like a month off and then 2 weeks and a month off and 2 weeks. But I didn't like prepare any of that because in my mind when I started this, the games are going to be on Tuesday and Wednesday. And so like you guys would already be aware of those things. So anyways, I hope that you've enjoyed this. If there are specific things that you noticed that I didn't bring up, please comment and let me know. Let me know what you loved about it and if there's anything else you want me to like talk about or mention because I'm always down for new ideas. So, thank you so much for tuning in. Give us a like, a subscribe, a follow. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and Instagram and TikTok. Sometimes Spotify tries to fight me and not let me upload the pod. It's only happened once that I couldn't fix it. I'm still working on a way to fix it. So my one episode with Meg about neurodiversity is now on Spotify. All of the other ones are there. So give us a listen. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. And I hope everybody has a great rest of their week.